Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. The Dharma is deep and lovely. We now have a chance to hear, study, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. Ahosi, Ahosi, Ahosi. Ahosi is to offer out forgiveness and also to request forgiveness, not to someone in particular, not to some place in particular, but actually to ask for and to offer out forgiveness towards all beings, to offer out from the root. So we now have this wonderful opportunity to listen to the Dharma together. And I invite everyone to really open widely their eyes, their ears, their nose, their mouth, their tongue, their body, their mind. Open widely to the present moment experiencing. And as we listen to these teachings that are pointing to the core fundamental basis of reality itself, the Buddha's enlightenment, the truth of truths, the absolute truth of all reality, without any special colors or special sounds or special words, but to really get to it, to really understand it for ourselves, to open widely and really to make use of this Dharma, these truth teachings. Sound good for everyone? And as we are live in this format, please say hello, leave a comment, say, hey, I'm here. And it's good to see and know about the people who are interested and the people who are here sincerely, even if it's only just a little word or a little phrase to let everyone else know that you're here. It can be very inspiring to see each other and to be here in the present moment together. All right, so let's begin. Today we are reading. Someone asks a question to a great Zen master, and then the Zen master answers. And so that's what we're going to be reading today. Please listen deeply and open the heart and open the mind fully. And if you feel inspired to share something or ask something as we go along in this reading, you can do it. You can share. Don't be shy, be quick, be sharp, but also don't worry about asking a question or not asking a question. Just open. And let's see where this goes. All right, so the question to this Zen master that came up. Nowadays, monks all say, we follow the Buddhist teaching and study scripture, treatises. We practice meditation. We follow the rules. We gain knowledge and understanding. We should receive the donations of the 4 necessities of life from patrons. Do you think that they can digest these donations? So the question here is brought up by this kind of observer, someone who's talking about the monks of today, and says that nowadays the monks all say we are following Buddhist teachings, we are following the rules, we are studying, we are practicing. So because we are doing those things, and this is very personal for me, you can imagine, because we are practicing and because we are studying the Buddhist teachings, then we should to receive the donations of the four necessities of life from patrons. So the monks say we practice Buddhism, we practice it well, we study Buddhism, we're following in the Buddhist path. And so we should to receive donations from people to accommodate these four necessities of life. I don't know, maybe food, water, shelter, clothing, these kinds of things. And this observer says to the Zen master, do you think they can digest these donations? So almost saying, do you think this is right, or do you think this is appropriate, right? Can they really make use of these donations? Is it really appropriate for them to receive donations because they are following the Buddhist teachings, because they are studying, because they are developing knowledge and a certain understanding? Is this really appropriate? Or the questioner says here, do you think they can digest these donations? And the Zen master answers, just going by the present shining function in each sound, form, scent, and taste, in the midst of all sorts of things, existent and non-existent, in every realm, if one has no grasping impulse at all, and yet does not dwell on not grasping, and does not even have an understanding of not dwelling, this person can consume 10,000 ounces of gold and still be able to digest it. This is the core fundamental teaching of Zen. If you can grasp this, if you can understand this directly through your own experience, then you have gotten to the core. You've touched the core at least. So let's read this again, all right? This answer. Just going by the present shining function in each sound, form, sense, scent, and taste. So the present shining function is the expression itself, right? The sound itself, the form and the form itself, the taste itself, the sound itself, the hearing itself. Just going by the present shining function, that things are just as they are, right in front of us, right? There's no effort for the eyes to see, and yet we can see clearly. Just going by the present shining function in each sound, form, scent, and taste, in the midst of all sorts of things, existent and non-existent, in every realm, if one has no grasping impulse at all, grasping impulse to get, to hold, to involve with, to control, and yet does not dwell on not grasping, so does not grasp on not grasping, and does not even have an understanding of not dwelling, this person can consume 10,000 ounces of gold and still be able to digest it. So if we can't digest something, right, it's a kind of a blockage in our system. We can't pass it through. We can't really make use of it and finish with it. So do you think these monks can digest these donations by studying scripture, following the Buddhist teachings, taking up rules, developing knowledge? Do you think they can digest it, these donations? And if they go by the present shining function, if they have no grasping impulse at all, and do not dwell on not grasping, and do not even have an understanding of not dwelling. So maybe do not even have an understanding of emptiness, but emptiness in the emptiness itself. This person can consume 10,000 ounces of gold and still be able to digest it. Okay, please listen closely. Listen to the listening. But in your awareness of all things, existent and non-existent right now, even if you cut off accretions in the gateways of the senses, so accretions, the process of growth, the process of adding to or involving with. So, but in your awareness of all things, existent and non-existent right now, even if you cut off accretions in the gateways of the senses, so even if you cut off your involvement with the senses, your adding onto of the senses, your preference in what you see or what you hear or what you feel, even if you cut off accretions in the gateways of the senses, if there is the slightest hair of greed remaining unconquered, then if you beg even a single grain of rice or a single thread of cloth from a patron, for each you will wear fur and horns, pull plows and bear burdens. One by one you must repay this before you can say you don't depend on Buddha to be free. A Buddha is someone with no attachments. So enlightenment, an enlightened person. A Buddha is someone with no attachments, someone with no seeking, someone without resort. Someone without resort. Someone without a strategy. Someone without a plan. Someone without a goal. A Buddha is someone with no attachments, someone with no seeking, someone without a plan. Now, if you longingly search for Buddha here and there, then you have totally turned away from Buddha. That is why it is said, though having long been associated with Buddha, they do not know the enlightened nature. And the teacher here at this temple recently said, look at you desiring liberation. Even the dogs and the trees don't desire like this. Shouldn't you be ashamed of yourself? That you can't drop this desire. Desire for liberation is delusion. Cut off the desire for anything at all. Finish. Desire for liberation is delusion. A Buddha, an enlightened person, is someone with no attachments, someone with no seeking, someone without resort. Now, if you longingly search for Buddha here and there, then you have totally turned away from Buddha. So if you are out there in this moment searching for something, grasping for something, trying to find it, try to get a hold of it, try to have it for yourself, then you have totally turned away from Buddha. If you are trying to get enlightenment, then you have turned away from enlightenment. That is why it is said, though having long been associated with Buddha, they do not know the enlightened nature. For those who only look at the Savior of the world, to say that one sees Buddha only after evolving in the 6 courses of existence for a long time is in order to explain that a Buddha is hard to meet. So these 6 courses of existence are mundane life. And here we have quite an interesting explanation of rebirth or reincarnation in Buddhism. So we'll go into that. So we say that Buddha is the savior of the world because the Buddha realized this enlightenment and shared it out. So giving us the path, all of us the path, the opportunity to become enlightened ourselves, right? To become free ourselves. For those who only look at the savior of the world, to say that one sees Buddha only after evolving in the 6 courses of existence for a long time is in order to explain that a Buddha is hard to meet. So, to say that we see Buddha or we realize enlightenment after a long time of struggles and efforts and energies, right, to free ourselves and to walk the path, this is only, evolving in these 6 courses of life, these 6 courses of levels of mind, right, high and low, is only to say that a Buddha is hard to meet. It's difficult to touch the core of it. It's difficult to meet the Buddha inside of yourself. That is why it is said, though having long been associated with Buddha, they do not know the enlightened nature. Right? Because a Buddha is someone with no attachments, someone with no seeking, someone without a goal or a plan of any kind. But if you longingly search for Buddha, or if you longingly search for freedom here and there, then you have totally turned away from Buddha. You've turned away from enlightenment. That is why it is said, though having long been associated with Buddha, they do not know the enlightened nature. Even though the Buddha is right in front of you, you haven't touched the core of it yet. You haven't grasped it. And if you have grasped it, speak up. Say something to express your understanding. So we have an interesting description here of reincarnation or rebirth in terms of these 6 courses of existence. The 6 courses of existence represent mundane life. Animal realms represent ignorance. Ghost realms represent craving. Hells represent anguish. Titans represent anger. The human realm represents conscience, right? To be aware, to have a capacity. Heavens represent abstraction. These are collectively called birth and death. There are also said to be 6 kinds of birth and death as a framework for contemplation. 6 kinds of birth and death as a framework for contemplation. Listen to this. Birth and death in every successive moment of thought, birth and death every day and night, birth and death every month, birth and death every year, and the birth and death of a lifetime. Interesting perspective. Okay, where are we at so far? Anyone have something to share? So, one aspect of this answer and this teaching is talking about the monks. And so this person says, all these monks today are saying, I'm following the Buddhist teaching, I'm studying scripture, I'm developing meditation. Basically, I'm becoming powerful and I'm developing myself and I'm following the Buddhist teachings. And so I should receive the donations of the four necessities of life from patrons, from donors, right? I should to receive that support because I'm following the Buddhist path, I'm a good person, I'm a meditator, whatever. But the answer here from this Zen master is first goes to the positive, so that if someone is truly free, right? If someone has penetrated into no grasping impulse at all, and not dwelling on not grasping, right? To fully let go and not dwelling on fully letting go, but letting go of the letting go itself, right? Then this person can can receive 10,000 ounces of gold and still be able to digest it, meaning that it's suitable, it's appropriate, they're not trapped by it, right? The monk is not trapped by that support, those donations, 10,000 ounces of gold even, let alone the four necessities of life. But he continues, in your awareness of all things existent and non-existent right now, even if you cut off all involvements in the gateways of the senses, so all preferential aspects or involvement with the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind, even if you cut off all involvements in those gateways, if there is the slightest hair of greed remaining unconquered, right, is that if there is the slightest aspect of more, right, and less, because aversion is also a form of greed. If there's the slightest hair of greed remaining unconquered, then if you beg even a single grain of rice or a single thread of cloth, so if you do not conquer that greediness, that grasping, that chasing after, then if you ask for even a single grain of rice or a single thread of cloth, right, then for each one you receive, you will wear fur and horns, meaning you will be an animal, right? You will pull plows and bear burdens. One by one, you must repay this before you say you don't depend on Buddha. So that you will have to repay your debt, because if we are, as a monk, if we are receiving the donations from people just because we are attractive or skillful, or our mind is pleasant, or our body is pleasant, whatever it is, then there will be a karmic effect to that. If we are not truly free, even if it's a powerful meditation or we study a lot of teaching, if we beg, if we receive the donation from the people, but we are not really free, if we still have that greed, then you will get back what you do, right? And it says here that for each donation you receive, you will wear fur and horns. You will go into a state of ignorance, as we went into later on with this description of the 6 courses of existence. Interesting, right? Birth and death in every successive moment of thought. Birth and death every day and night. Birth and death every month. Birth and death every year. And the birth and death of a lifetime. And to cut these as aspects for contemplation. Okay. Manjushri is the principal leading bodhisattva of this world. So Manjushri is like an archetype, a living archetype, right? A spiritual archetype, a metaphysical archetype of wisdom, of ultimate wisdom. So when Manjushri is depicted, Manjushri holds in one hand a great sword, right? A great sword of wisdom, and in the other hand, a flower of compassion, or maybe just the sword sometimes, to cut through complicated thinking, to cut through delusion, to cut through greed, to cut through non-practical thinking. And that's right, the last sentence there about one by one you must repay this debt according to what you get. You must repay it before you can say you don't depend on Buddha. So that's to say you are really free or you really get it, right? You've gone even beyond the Buddha. You're no longer even attached to the Buddha. And we're going to get into that in the reading moving forward. Okay. Manjushri, this archetype, this embodiment of wisdom, is the principal leading bodhisattva of this world. Yet because he, and this is almost the answer as well, Aaron, yet because he made up the idea of seeing Buddha and made up the idea of hearing Dharma, he was overcome by the inconceivable power of Buddha and cast down between two enclosures of iron mountains. So not to be attached to anything, not to become trapped by anything. Not Buddha, not enlightenment. So even Manjushri, this great archetype of wisdom, made up or brought up this idea of seeing Buddha and made up the idea of hearing the Dharma. He was overcome by the inconceivable power of Buddha and cast down between two enclosures of iron mountains. He was overcome by the power of attachment. It is not that he does not know how to specially act as a standard for students. Rather, he is commanding all students of later times not to concoct such seeing and hearing. Not to be trapped by seeing the Buddha, not to be trapped by this idea of hearing the Dharma. Open widely to the present moment experiencing. No one can trick you. No one can trap you. Nothing and no one. Everything, everything. Okay, please listen. Just have no doctrines of existence, non-existence, and so on. No views of being, non-being, and so on. Pass through and beyond the three stages. Pass through and beyond all stages of understanding, all stages of enlightenment. Go beyond enlightenment. This is called the wish-fulfilling gem. This is called jeweled flowers supporting your feet. So what is the wish-fulfilling gem? What is jewel flowers, diamond flowers, ruby flowers, sapphire flowers supporting your feet? What is that? Okay? It is just have no doctrines of existence, non-existence, and so on. So that is something being real and something being not real, something being true and something being not true. Okay? What is jewel flowers supporting your feet? What is the wish-fulfilling gem of Zen? Just have no doctrines, no complicated ideas, no regiments that you subscribe to relating to existence, what exists, what doesn't exist, and so on. No views of being, non-being, and so on. Pass through and beyond the three stages. Pass through and beyond all stages of development. Okay? This is called the wish-fulfilling gem. This is called jewel flowers supporting your feet. This is called freedom. This is called touching the core. If you create a view of Buddha, or a view of truth, or views of anything at all, existent, non-existent, or whatever, these are called illusions of diseased eyes. Illusions of diseased eyes. Based upon opinion, they may also be called the enclosure of views, the trap of views, the lid of views, or the affliction of views. All right, is anyone following along? Do we have any thoughts or sharing here? This is an interesting situation. Where do we find a perspective like this? Where do we find a perspective like this? Okay, yeah, some people hear it through Alan Watts, sure. Open widely. Don't answer with words. Don't answer with thoughts. Answer with opening and sharing out your awakening with nothing. Manjusri, Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. Okay. Right now, in moment after moment of awareness, if all that is seen, heard, supposed, and perceived, and all defiling data of afflictions and passions are thoroughly cleared, right here at this moment, to open widely, to clear fully. Yes, Glyphix, grasping to any specific view or knowledge to any given subject is folly, is irrelevant. And the irrelevant is irrelevant in itself. Okay? Not to grasp to the non-grasping itself. Simple, practical, wholesome, offering out widely, opening widely. Right now, in moment after moment of awareness, if all that is seen, heard, supposed, and perceived, and all defiling data of afflictions and passions are thoroughly cleared, then even a single atom, even a single form is a Buddha. Even a single moment of thought is the past, present, and future body-mind of one Buddha. Thought after thought, who knows how many, this is represented as Buddhas filling space. This is represented as a Buddha replicating. This is represented as a precious shrine appearing. Okay, shall we take a song break? Who's ready to sing a song? Who is ready to sing a song? And the song we're going to sing is Breathing In, Breathing Out. Do we have some people who have memorized that song? Let's type, let's see the comment here. Who's ready to sing? Singing intermission. We're getting into some heavy stuff here, so we can take a singing break. It's not a break, it's a singing enlightenment moment. Okay. The song we are going to sing is breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. I am blooming as a flower. I am fresh as the dew. I am solid as a mountain. I am firm as the earth. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. I am water reflecting what is real, what is true. And I feel there is space deep inside of me. I am free. I am free. I am free. Here we go. If you don't know the words, you can hum along. And also, if you don't know the words, you can follow along with the hand motions, okay? Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. I am blooming as a flower. I am fresh as the dew. I am solid as a mountain. I am firm as the earth. I am free. Okay, breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. I am water reflecting what is real, what is true. And I feel there is space deep inside of me. I am free, I am free, I am free. Okay? And by this time, some of you should certainly have that song memorized, right? So let's continue with our reading. Let's continue on. I always sadly say that as we see the life we rely on today, it depends on a grain of rice, a bit of vegetable to eat. If we do not get food from time to time, we starve. If we do not get water, we die of thirst. And if we do not have fire, we freeze to death. If we lack for one day, we aren't living. Yet if we lack for one day, we don't die either. We are in the grip of the gross elements. Now this is gross versus subtle. So we are in the grip of this kind of animalistic situation, right? We depend on the air, the fire, the water, the food. Every day, every moment, we're in this kind of state of dependence. Now, this is not comparable to our predecessors. So those ancients, those who walked the path before us, and even this is a monk from several hundred years ago, talking about the ones who came before him or them. He says, this is not comparable to our predecessors who entered fire without burning and went into water without drowning, yet burned if they wanted to burn and drowned if they wanted to drown. They lived when they wanted to live and died when they wanted to die. They were free to go or to stay. Such people have their share of freedom. If the mind is not disturbed, there is no need to seek Buddha, to seek enlightenment or extinction of suffering. If the mind is not disturbed, there is no need to seek Buddha, to seek enlightenment, or to seek the extinction of suffering, right? We said at the beginning, this desire for enlightenment, this desire for liberation is delusion. If you seek with attachment to Buddha, this is in the province of greed, and greed makes it a disease. That is why it is said, the disease of Buddha is most difficult to cure. Only by slandering the Buddha and repudiating the Dharma can you take food. Food means your own purely aware essence, the meal of non-indulgence, the food of liberation. These words cure the ailment of the bodhisattvas of the 10th stage. Okay, we can listen very clearly to this. The disease of Buddha, the disease of enlightenment, is most difficult to cure. Only by slandering the Buddha, or we can say only by killing the Buddha and repudiating the Dharma, to cut through the Dharma. I'm a Dharma teacher. This is a Dharma teaching. Only by cutting through the Dharma can you take food. Now, what is food? What does food mean? Food means your own purely aware essence. The meal of non-indulgence, the food of liberation. Your own purely aware essence. These words cure the ailment of the bodhisattvas of the 10th stages. Bodhisattvas from the 1st to the 10th stage are still disciples. As long as they presently have any seeking mind at all, they are called immoral monks and nominal saints. They are all called jackals. Clearly, they cannot digest the offerings of others. So there's a few concepts here. One is that these teachings, while spontaneously accessible, right? The food means your own purely aware essence. To take, to receive, to open up to your purely aware essence. Purely aware essence. Reality as it is. Awaken with the emptiness. Just this. But if you are attached to Buddha, if you are attached to Dharma, if you are attached to this high-minded spiritual ideal, you want to become something, you want to change yourself to be someone or something, then you have the disease of greed. So only by cutting through the Buddha, only by cutting through the Dharma, can you cure this disease. And can you take food? Can you take the medicine of to open up, to receive, to penetrate your own purely aware essence? This is the meal of non-indulgence. This is the meal of emptiness. Now, bodhisattvas are usually, in a lot of Buddhist traditions, are held up to be these, 10 stages of bodhisattvas. It's basically talking about very, very high-level practitioners, right? Practitioners that are so selfless. They've given away so much of their own freedom for the benefit of others, right? They've put aside their own enlightenment. They've put aside their own development to help all beings, right? With a vow to save all beings, that they won't be enlightened until all beings are enlightened. And then there's these just 10 stages of development, 10 stages of, more advanced, less advanced. But just to be a bodhisattva itself is this very high ideal, right? This very amazing, wonderful spiritual embodiment that we can take, or that people of the past have taken, or even that kind of goes beyond being a human being, right? It's this spiritual idea of a being of complete compassion, an archetype of complete wisdom. this monk, this Zen master here is saying something. Bodhisattvas from the 1st to the 10th stage are still disciples. They are not yet awakened. And then they go on to say, as long as they presently have any seeking mind at all, any mind to get something, any mind to go somewhere, as long as they presently have any seeking mind at all, they are all called immoral monks and nominal saints. They are all called jackals. Clearly, they cannot digest the offering of others, that you need to enlighten to be supported. If you are not willing to enlighten, if you are not able to abandon views, to give up seeking anything, whether it's Buddha or enlightenment or Dharma, then you don't deserve to eat. And what you do eat, you will have to pay back. This is what the Zen master is saying. It's a strong teaching. It's a terse teaching. We don't need to be, oh my gosh, I'm not allowed to eat now. Don't be silly. But there's a teaching here. There's a pointer here about how important. And earlier, a few days, we had another Zen master we were reading through that said it is more difficult, or it is easier to turn stones and rocks into gold and jewels. It's easier to turn rocks into sapphires, rubies, diamonds, emeralds, than it is to get a person to put down negation and affirmation, to put down the seeking mind, to put down the judging mind, to put down the mind of views, the putting down itself. And they don't say this lightly. They really mean it. That's how difficult we are. That's how stubborn we are as a human being. So that's just us normal human beings. We're like that. We're so stubborn and have these difficulties, ignorance, etc., right? Problematic. Human beings are problematic. Now we're talking about bodhisattvas, those who have given away everything to benefit others, to enlighten others on the path, and have made a lot of spiritual progress, have gone beyond the human lifespan even, right? Have become spiritual beings, archetypes of compassion and wisdom and freedom, right? These great, shining, brilliant beings of freedom. Please listen. I always sadly say that as we see the life we rely on today, it depends on a grain of rice and a bit of vegetable to eat. If we do not get food from time to time, we starve. If we do not get water, we die of thirst. And if we do not have fire, we freeze to death. If we lack for one day, we aren't living. Yet if we lack for one day, we won't die either. Right? So if we don't have water for one day, if we don't have food for one day, if we don't have heat for one day, that comfort, then we say, well, that's not really living. Right? That's not even worthwhile to go through. Yet if we lack for one day, we don't die either. We are in the grip of the gross elements. We are in the grip of the materiality of the life. We are in the grip of cause and effect. We are in the grip of attachment. This is not comparable to our predecessors, who entered fire without burning and went into water without drowning, yet burned if they wanted to burn and drowned if they wanted to drown. They lived when they wanted to live and died when they wanted to die. They were free to go or to stay. People like this have their share of freedom. Please listen. If the mind is not disturbed, there is no need to seek Buddha, to seek enlightenment or the extinction of suffering. If the mind is not disturbed, there is no need to seek anything at all. If you seek with attachment to Buddha, this is in the province of greed, and greed makes it a disease. That is why it is said that the disease of Buddha is the most difficult to cure. Only by slandering the Buddha, only by taking the Buddha off of his pedestal and putting him down on the floor, only by dirtying the Buddha and cutting through the Dharma. That's not the truth. That's not it. The disease of Buddha is most difficult to cure. Only by slandering the Buddha and repudiating the Dharma, to detach, to untransfix from the Buddha and the Dharma, can you take food. Food means to take food. Food means to take your own purely aware essence, the meal of non-indulgence. What is the meal of non-indulgence? What is the food of liberation? Your own purely aware essence, the core. These words cure the ailment of the bodhisattvas of the 10th stage. These words cure the ailment of the highest level spiritual practitioners. Spiritual practitioners from the first to the final stage are still disciples. They're still followers. They're still trying to learn, still trying to grasp. As long as they presently have any seeking mind at all, they are called immoral monks. They are called wrong people. They are called phony saints. Only in name are they a saint. Only in name are they enlightened. They are called jackals. Clearly, they cannot digest the offerings of others. But if one presently hears sound as like an echo, smells scent as like air, detached from all things existent, non-existent, or otherwise, and yet does not dwell in detachment, and has no understanding of not dwelling either, this person cannot become morally polluted. This is talking about wisdom morality. Okay? Prajna sila. The morality of wisdom. The precepts of wisdom. Listen, maybe we can't fully digest this. Maybe we can't fully understand this, but we can open up widely according with our purely aware essence, not the cognitive mind, not the complicated mind that understands it, but the purely aware essence. If one presently hears sound as like an echo, smells scent as like air, detached from all things, existent, non-existent, or otherwise, and yet does not dwell in detachment. So to detach from the detachment itself, not attaching to the non-attaching itself, okay? Does not dwell in detachment and has no understanding of not dwelling either, the pure essence, not self-fixation. This person cannot become morally polluted, whatever they do, whatever they experience. For one to be called a renunciant, so for one to become a home leaver or one who is truly on the spiritual path, okay? For one to be called a renunciant because of the search for supreme enlightenment and ultimate peace is still a false aspiration. All right? So for one to be called a monk or for one to be called a really sincere spiritual practitioner because of their search for supreme enlightenment and their search for ultimate peace is still a false aspiration, because seeking something, you're still trapped, you're still seeking something, and that is seeking supreme enlightenment, ultimate peace. Now, how much more so is a false aspiration? How much more so worldly disputation and contention? Worldly disputation is arguments and disagreements. Claiming ability and understanding for oneself, seeking a following, liking a disciple, being fond of a dwelling place, making a pact with a patron for a robe, a meal, a name, a gain. Those like this may say they have attained total unimpeded freedom, but they are only fooling themselves. So it gets to the core of it, right? For one to be called a true spiritual practitioner, because of their search for supreme enlightenment and ultimate peace, is still a false aspiration, a false supposition, a false ambition, because it's just seeking. Now, how much more so this false supposition, this false position, for one to be called a renunciate, or for one to be called a true spiritual practitioner, or a true monk, a real monk, how much more so worldly disputation and contention. So to getting involved in arguments or debates about the Dharma or the truth, claiming ability and understanding for oneself, seeking a following, liking a disciple, being fond of a dwelling place, making a pact with a patron for a robe, a meal, a name, a gain. Those like this may say they have attained total unimpeded freedom, but they are only fooling themselves. That means that there's no discussion. It's a razor's edge, and it's right here and right now. I like this robe. I like this dwelling place. I had a discussion with this person and I came out on top. It's all false. It's not legitimate. It's empty of any legitimacy. It's empty of any authenticity. It's just searching for something. It's just grasping. Not grasping the not grasping itself. Opening up to not grasping in the present moment experiencing. Non-indulgence. Non-indulgence. Now, what did we say before here? This is why it is said, though having long been associated with Buddha, though having long been associated with our innate, pure, true essence, our core, they do not know the enlightened nature. Because we are searching for the Buddha. We are chasing after our enlightenment. We like this, we don't like that. We are indulging. That is why it is said, the disease of Buddha, the disease of enlightenment, the disease of the spiritual path is most difficult to cure. Only by slandering enlightenment, only by slandering the spiritual path and repudiating the Dharma. This is not it. Can you take food? Food means your own purely aware essence. Essence means that it's at the very core. It's at the very foundation. There's nothing that's separate from it. The meal of non-indulgence, the food of liberation. please listen. If you are presently capable of not asserting ownership of your own body-mind complex, not having any thought of resentment or regret or suffering, even if cut to pieces by others, or even when your own wards are beaten head to foot by others, if you do not have so much as a single thought conceiving ideas of others and self, even in such situations as these, and then you abide in the absence of even a single thought and consider that right, this is called defilement by objectification of the teaching. Even people in the 10th stage cannot get rid of this completely, and they flow into the river of birth and death. This is why I always urge everyone to be wary of the affliction of defilement by objectification of the teaching, just as you would fear the states of hells, hungry ghosts, and animals. Then you will have a share of independence. Happy 4th of July.